What's shaking, gang? Mr. Jeff here, and welcome to this week's video. So this week we're going to be looking at audio interfaces and doing a sort of buying guide. Now there are like a bajillion audio interfaces out there, and there's no way I could even begin to cover a fraction of them. So what we'll do today is we'll go over commonalities that any interface is going to have, and then we'll go over some features that some audio interfaces have and others may not. This way, based on your needs, this will give you an idea of things to look out for when you're shopping for an interface for your studio. Alright, so let's start by looking at a basic little 2-channel interface, and we'll kind of move up from there. Alright, now speaking in generalities, most interfaces are going to have what's called a combo connector on the front. Now it's called a combo connector because this connection can either accept an XLR cable or a 1/4-inch cable. Then you're going to have your preamp gain. This here is going to be for your level meters. Typically most interfaces are going to have some type of level. That would be used to help you monitor the input level of the signal going into your computer. Now another thing a lot of them are going to have is an instrument switch or a button. So what this is for is guitars have a really low output level. So if you plug your guitar directly into that input, you can crank the gain and you're still almost going to hear nothing because the input level or the output level of the guitar is so quiet. So what that button basically does is it converts this input into a high Z input. So it's internally boosting the gain to a proper level for a guitar coming in. And then you would just adjust your gain accordingly like anything else. Now we got a phantom power button. Every unit's going to have some sort of phantom power button, whether it's done in groups or whether you can do it on individual inputs. Either way, they're all going to have a phantom power button for your condenser mics. Now a lot of them are going to have a monitoring dial. Sometimes it might be a physical knob on the interface, sometimes it might be done in software. But what that'll do is it'll let you monitor the input before it goes through your computer. So you're hearing the direct input. So that would be latency free, there'd be zero latency. So that gives you an option to either monitor before the signals hit your computer or after it's hit your computer. A headphone jack and a volume, all of them are going to have at least one headphone jack. Some of them might have two, like my Focusrite has two. And then a master volume knob to control the level going to your monitors. Now looking at the back of this one, now every interface is going to have some sort of outputs, even if it's just two, and these are going to feed your speakers. And then they're all going to have some type of connection to your computer. And that's used to send the audio back and forth from the interface to the computer. Connection-wise nowadays, there's 3 typical connections that you're going to find. So that's going to be USB. If you spend a little more money, you might have a Thunderbolt connection on it, which is going to be a lot faster than USB. And if you're spending a lot of money, it might have an Ethernet connection and use a Dante connection, which is basically just audio over Ethernet. Alright, so that's kind of the gist of basically all the commonalities that pretty well most any audio interface you buy is going to have. So let's look into some more of the advanced features you might want to look into. Alright, so first let's look at power because, well, they need electricity to work. Okay, so most smaller units like this one, this unit is USB powered. There isn't even a port on the back to plug a wall-wart into it. So the computer itself is what is powering the unit. And that's going to be pretty common on small units like this one. Some other smaller units might also give you the option to run either power over USB or to actually plug it into the wall. So if you're somebody who's on the go a lot, maybe working on planes, trains, and automobiles, the option to run it solely on USB power might be very important to you. Now there's a caveat with that. Now depending on your computer, when your unit is being powered over USB, you might run into issues with ground loops. Guilty. So to fix that, there's actually little adapters that you can get. I think they're like 20 bucks or something on Amazon. If I can find some again, I'll put them in a link below. And these would just plug in between the interface and your computer, and that would eliminate your ground loop issue. Okay, so now the number of inputs that a unit has is a very important one to be considering. Basically, you don't want to buy a 2-channel unit and then a few months down the road be like, oh crap, I should have bought a 4 or an 8-channel unit. So for example, if you're somebody who only ever records yourself playing an acoustic guitar, or maybe you write hip-hop or electronic music and maybe all you need is the odd vocal recording, then a simple 2-channel interface might be all you ever need. But for anyone else, you're probably better off buying a unit that has more inputs than you need, and that'll help you future-proof the unit for a little bit for you. I mean, at the end of the day, it's better to have the extra inputs and not need them than to need them and then not have them and then have to go buy another unit. Now, another thing to consider is how many outputs does the unit have? Now, they're all going to have at least 2 so you can run audio to your monitors, but what if you have 2 or 3 sets of monitors? Well, then that's not going to work, so you're going to need a unit that has enough outputs in the back to accommodate your additional monitor setup. Or maybe you have some outboard gear that you like to use when you're mixing, so you need to be able to run the signal out of like Logic or Pro Tools out of the interface through the outboard gear and then back into Pro Tools or Logic. This is another area where having additional outputs is going to be important. Now, another important thing to consider is the expandability of your main unit. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Okay, so typically you're going to have your main unit and that's going to connect to your computer and that's going to handle all the audio coming in and out of the computer. Now that main unit might be able to handle 8 ins and outs coming in and out of your computer, anywhere up to say 64 channels coming in and out of your computer. So let's take Focusrite as an example. Okay, so I've got an 18i20. and that's what connects to the computer via USB. So if I needed more mic pre's than the 8 that the unit comes with, I wouldn't buy another 18i20, I would buy, as an example, one of their octo pre's. So that'll give me that 8 additional inputs that I need, but that unit won't connect to the computer at all. It'll connect to the main 18i20 via an optical cable. See what I'm saying? So some units might be expandable via light pipe or optical cable, same thing. Or they might be expandable via DB25 connector. So just to sum that up, again, how expandable your main unit is another thing to consider. 4 inputs might be great now, but you might find yourself a year from now needing 24. So another area to consider when you're shopping for an interface is, do you need word clock? Now word clock is used to sync different digital devices together. One unit would be the master clock, and then the other units would slave to the master clock. This would prevent timing and jitter issues between the digital devices. Another thing to consider would be MIDI ports. Now most modern devices are going to give you the option to connect either via old school MIDI cables or via USB cable. Now the USB cables are great, plug it in, you're done. But if you have a lot of MIDI devices, you can start going through USB ports real fast, and then you're having to get a ton of hubs and all this other stuff. So if you have a ton of MIDI gear and you don't want to eat up a bajillion USB ports, you might be better off getting a MIDI patch bay, and then just from that patch bay run your MIDI in and out cables straight into the back of your interface, and then just be done with it. Alright, and the last thing that we're going to touch on today is software. Most units you buy today are going to come bundled with some sort of software. And that can be anything from free plugins to possibly even a light version of a DAW. You might get a light version of Cubase or Pro Tools or Ableton Live. So I mean, if you're brand new to this and you haven't decided or even bought a DAW yet, getting an audio interface that comes with a DAW would be a good way to get you started right out of the box. So audio interfaces can be a very long and daunting conversation. And if you're new, can be very confusing on what to buy. So hopefully if you're new or newer to this video helped you out a little bit at least. And again, if you want me to go deeper into any element of the audio interface, just leave me a comment below. And again, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff. So again, thanks again for watching, and I'll see all you guys next week. See ya!